Hello everyone, welcome back to the series of video lecture on English for Skill Enhancement. As you know, I am Arif Ahammed. I teach English at Department of MLR Institute of Technology, Hyderabad. Today I am going to talk about one reading technique that is called SQ3R reading technique. It's also called method, right? Reading method. So let's see what is the overview of today's lecture. First, I will be talking about what is SQ3R, then why we should be using SQ3R, why it is important, and then steps involved in SQ3R method. So what are the steps? As you can see, 1, 2, then 3R. 5 steps are involved. So I'll be talking about each of those steps. So first, let's see introduction to SQ3R. What is SQ3R? It's a technique of reading. Now, what is technique of reading? The way we read, we should be reading something. Normally what happens when we read something, we don't bother about techniques and all. Either we use these techniques unconsciously or we even don't bother to think about any techniques. We just simply read, and that's where all the problem begins actually. If our reading is not systematic, if it is not organized, what happens? Though you will be putting all the effort, all the energy, our output would be very less. That's why we keep forgetting things. If you have observed, right? You will be sometime wondering that I'm reading like 7 hours a day, 8 hours a day, 10 hours a day, but then ultimately I'm not getting anything. I'm again forgetting everything during exam. Now, have you ever thought why these things happen actually? That is because of our unorganized way of reading. That's why it's very important to follow certain techniques while we read. We have already discussed about other reading techniques like scanning, skimming, intensive, extensive reading. Now, this is one another important techniques or method that is called SQ3R method. What is SQ3R method? It stands for survey. First step is survey. Second step is question. Then read, recite, and review. Fine. These are 5 important steps. It is developed by Francis R. Robinson in 1946. He was the person who actually introduced this particular technique. And what is the purpose of this SQ3R method? It improves reading comprehension and retention because it makes our reading much more organized, much more structured, much more meaningful. What happened? Our comprehension level and retention level increases. That is very important. And that's why SQ3R is very important. Now, why it is used, or you can say the benefits of SQ3R method, because it promotes active reading. When you follow this particular techniques of reading, you do not read passively anymore. You become an active reader. The engagement of the reader and text becomes very active, very dynamic. And that is one important benefit or reason for using SQ3R. Second one is it improves concentration and memory. Because of the structured way of reading, it improves our concentration and also memory. Helps break down complex text. Sometimes what happens if the text is too complex, we will obviously find it difficult to understand. Now this SQ3R method, what it helps, it actually helps us to break down that complex idea, and then it becomes easier for us to understand that concept once it is broken down into small pieces, right? Ideal for academic reading and self-study. When we do some self-study kind of thing, academic reading, this SQ3R reading method is very important or ideal. Now, first step, now I'll be talking about each of the steps in detail. Survey. So what is the common meaning of survey? You know, you might have heard about land survey. Now, what does it mean? Survey means to get an idea about something. When we survey a land, let's say, why we do that? In order to get an idea about the plots, availability of plots, the ownership and everything, right? The same is applicable. The same kind of thing you have to do while you are reading a text. So what is the purpose? First, get an overview and active prior knowledge. So before you start reading something in details, you should have an overview about the text. What is the text about? The central idea, the central theme of the text. You don't need to read the entire text from the start go. From the word go, right? You cannot do that. You should not be doing that also. First, get an overall idea. Now, how do you do that overall idea? How do you get that overall idea? By doing a survey. Now, how do you do the survey? Skimming through the material quickly. Do not read each and every word. Just skim through it. Look at the headings, subheadings, pictures, graphs and all the things. Read the introduction and summary. So, small part you read just to get an overall idea. So, if you read the introduction, summary, if you read the abstract, let's say, if you read the headings, subheadings, you will get an idea about the text, what the text is about. Now, that is called survey. And that will help you to get an overall idea, an overview, general idea about the document you are reading or you are going to read. So that is first step, survey. Please remember that stands for S. S stands for survey. Next one is question. Now this is very important. A very small part, very easy part, but very small and effective part. Why? Because it set a purpose for reading. Normally, this is one very serious issue with our reading. In most of the time, we read aimlessly. Though we read, maybe we are serious about our reading, but then we don't set a purpose of our reading. We don't know. We often don't set a target or purpose of reading. Why am I going to read this? That question is very important. Okay, so you should have some questions in your mind before you start reading something. So obviously that question would be related to the text, the document that you are going to read. So how do you develop these questions? What you can do? You can just simply turn the headings into questions. Okay, so headings would be there, sections, subsections would be there, right? Those titles of the, those headings or subheadings only you can turn into question. For example, if you remember, just in the previous lecture we have discussed about art and literature. The first section, the title of the first section was art helps life to survive. Now, if you have to turn this particular heading into question, how can you do it? You can simply say how art help life to survive. Fine. So that becomes a question. Now, the moment that question enters into your head, your reading becomes much more focused. You already have a question in your mind which the answer you have to find while you are reading. So you get a purpose of your reading. Fine. So that's why reading is considered as very important. What is this section about? What do I already know? Any kind of questions. You can turn the headings into questions. You can create some general kind of questions also, like what is this section about? What do I already know? All these things. Okay, next we'll be going to the third step, that is read. Now comes read. Here you are going to read everything in detail. Third step, you see. So now you have to concentrate on each and every word, because obviously you are reading a very important document. So now you have to focus on each and every words and sentences. Try to find answers to the questions framed in the previous steps. So whichever question you have framed already in the second step, that is question step, you need to try to find answers to those questions while you would be reading in detail. So the questions will already be in your mind, or just note it down on a piece of paper. Keep the paper beside you. And then once you start reading, just look at the questions in between also. So that you can, what are the questions that you have. And you have to find answers to those questions while you are reading in details. So you can also do one thing in this particular phase or stage. You can highlight or take notes also. Just highlight the important points on take notes, important notes. Stay focused and think critically. This is also important. While reading, you have to stay focused. Already questions are there, which you have to find answers to, right? And then you can think critically also. So this is third step, read. Fourth step is recite. Now, what is the meaning of recite? You say reading out loudly, basically. This step helps to reinforce learning and check understanding. Now, recite the key points aloud. It's about reading loudly. The previous step, reading, you can do silently also, right, in your mind. But this recite step, you have to read loudly, and even if you don't read each and every word, each and every sentence, just recite the key points aloud. Answer your questions from step 2. Here also try to answer those questions that you have already framed in step 2, that is question Q stage. Fine? Okay, next, last step, it is review. Now, what is review? And what is the purpose of review? To repair your understanding. So whatever things you have understood from the text, this review step will actually enhance those understanding. It will repair those understanding. If there is any problem in the understanding, it will fix those problems and it will enhance the overall understanding. So what you are supposed to do here, go over the material again after reading and then review your notes and summaries. Cross-check if the answers are correct or not. Whatever answers you have found, whether they are correct or not. Reread difficult parts if necessary. If you feel that one particular section is a little difficult, you didn't understand the meaning properly, just reread that particular part again. And then quiz yourself to ensure retention. Ask yourself few questions based on the text and check whether you are able to answer or not. So that's called review. Fine. That is the last step. Now you can see this is a visual representation. I have taken this graph from these particular online sources. This is SQ3R method, as you can see. So broadly you can see you can divide it. Already 5 main steps are there, but that 5 main steps also happens in 3 different stages actually. What are they? When it comes to survey and question, it happens before pre-reading. Before you start reading, what you are doing? You are doing first surveying. You are surveying to get an overall idea, and then you are preparing questions. You are turning the headings, subheadings into questions to set a purpose for your reading. And then in the next phase, what you are doing? You are starting to read while reading. This is another phase. And here what you are doing 2 things here, read and recite, right? These 2 things you are doing here. First, you are reading in detail with full concentration and attention, silently. And then recite part, what you are doing? You are reading out loudly, if not the entire text again, but at least the key argument, the key point of the text you are going to read. So this is while reading phase. And then the last step, that is review, that happens in post reading. So it's after the reading and recite part is done. This is post reading. What you do? You respond, like you quiz yourself and then try to respond to those questions. You review and reflect. You reflect whether you have already got some idea about whatever you understood from reading the text, whether you already had some pre-existing knowledge or not. And then you summarize. You just tell yourself what is the basic, like the summary of the entire documents. Retelling. Sometimes what happens? You restate the main argument in review phase. So this is post reading phase. What it does, it actually enhances the output. Whatever output you already got by doing survey, question, and then read and recite, this review phase actually enhances all those things. Fine. So I hope it's pretty clear now. So what are the things that we got to learn from today's lecture? First, we got an idea about SQ3R method. What is SQ3R method? Who introduced this particular method? And then we got to know about the purpose of using SQ3R, or in other words, the benefits of SQ3R method. And then we got to know about all the steps involved and how to actually execute, all these steps. Fine. So I hope it is clear. So from now onwards, whenever you are reading something, please make sure that you are following that particular step. Just do it for one particular document and see how it actually can make your reading much more effective. You will realize it. So please do that. Right? Thank you everyone for being with me. I will meet again with all of you with a different topic in the next lecture. Thank you.